I want to talk about a way of thinking that has helped me become far happier and will maybe help you too. I call this everyday serendipity, and it integrates three of the most important skills that you need for leading a happy life: resilience, optimism, and appreciation. And when you use these three skills together, you can greatly improve the quality of your life and discover what you need while you're often looking for what you think you want. Now, when we think of serendipity, we think of happy accidents, and there's no finer example than the 16-year-old John Lennon meeting the 15-year-old Paul McCartney at a garden fete in 1957. What incredible good fortune that these two musical geniuses should be living in Liverpool at the same time and come together and go on to form the Beatles. But I want to turn from the Beatles to the Rolling Stones to explain the type of serendipity that I'm talking about today, which is serendipity not as an event, but as a mindset that you can apply to all areas of your life. And in the words of their classic song, you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometime, you find you get what you need. And everyday serendipity is getting what you need when you don't necessarily get what you want or what you think you want. And everyday serendipity is a mindset that really reveals the extraordinary hidden treasures that are available to us all the time in our life. And to quote the great poet Rumi, it's important to live life as if everything is rigged in your favor. Now, this always intrigued me, this phrase, because I don't necessarily believe that everything is rigged in our favor, but what a way to look at your life as a process of looking for, finding, and following the clues. Because when you approach life with that way, you naturally look for what's more positive and what's more serendipitous. But it's also a way of thinking about the world that allows you to reinterpret your disasters in your life. Because what if what you think was a terrible event and a terrible experience turns out to be a very important experience and one of the most valuable of your life? And I really learnt about this firsthand in my own life when I was at my very lowest point. It all started out very well. In December 2006, I flew to Southern California in first class with my family. I'd achieved everything I ever wanted in life. I had a very successful business. I'd just been teaching at Oxford University and just published my first book. We went to live in a wonderful home, an exclusive community, and I had enough money never to work again. I spent my day walking on the beach, playing tennis, and reading by the pool. And then it all went disastrously wrong. Go forward 5 years to April 2011, and I was flying back to England, in economy class this time, and with my life shattered around me. I'd been through a divorce, lost most of my money, and the three businesses I'd started in the US had all failed. Now, at first, I felt very sorry for myself. I indulged in self-pity and created a story that I was a victim of circumstances, of a recession, of other people, and the world was conspiring against me. But then somebody put a very intriguing question to me. They said, what if what happened to me had actually been good for me? What if there was a different meaning to what had happened? Excuse me. Armed with this idea, I started to change the whole way I thought about what I believe was a personal crisis. And I started to see that losing the life that I thought I'd wanted had led me to a life that I actually needed. It took me a long time to figure it out. But when I did figure it out, everything started to make perfect sense. Because I realized that I'd been living my life on a lie. I'd built a persona that was based on everything going right, of always getting what I wanted. But when this persona was stripped away, it revealed something far more substantial, something far more significant. Because I had to lose my persona to discover my true self. And my true self had everything that I needed to be happy now. And this was a real epiphany for me because I'd spent so much of my time in my life trying to always follow my desires, always to be more and more successful. And that's a completely unsustainable way to live. So I had to lose everything to really clarify and understand what was most important in my life. And I became far less successful at making money, but far more successful at making a life. And I learned to live a far more simple life. So I spend my time now walking reading, writing, and meditating. And I don't fixate on trying to improve my material position. I try and stay in one place and really enjoy what I have. Because sometimes your world has to be really shaken up for you to understand what's most important. And sometimes what seems like a disaster can turn out to be a triumph in disguise and make complete sense from a wiser and wider perspective, especially with the benefit of hindsight. It's all about how you see what's happening to you. In the words of Dickens, you can turn the worst times into the best of times. In the words of Proust, the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. And I learned to develop new eyes and see the world very differently. And for the first time, really enjoy the simple pleasures of life. And now I want to turn to my favorite movie, Groundhog Day, because it's the perfect story of everyday serendipity. It's about the personal transformation of Phil Connors, played by Bill Murray, who believes he's the unluckiest person in the world, only to discover that he's the luckiest person in the world. Stuck in a town he hates, on an ever-repeating freezing day, he's stuck for eternity with people he can't stand, and he feels completely desperate. His life seems to have no meaning. Then he's given a completely different interpretation of his situation by his producer, Rita, played by Andy McDowell, who says to him, maybe it's not a curse, it just depends on how you look at it. Spurred on by this insight, he goes on to transform the worst day of his life into the best day of his life. He learns to love the very same people, town, and rituals that he had previously despised. And he finds true happiness in the place he least expects it. And this is the essence of everyday serendipity. It's uncovering the hidden treasures that are always available to all of us if we just stop and look for them. And if we stop wanting more all the time and just learn to appreciate what we have, we find that happiness is there for us all the time. And for me, probably the most valuable lesson in life is that the key to happiness is not keep on trying to change your circumstances, but to enjoy more of what you have, and that you can make every day serendipitous when you choose to change your mindset. And there are 3 particular techniques that you can use today to improve the quality of your life. So next time you don't get what you want, you're rejected by a friend, an exam goes wrong, or you don't get the promotion you wanted, apply these 3 steps. And the first of these steps is to be resilient. Take responsibility for responding to what happens to you. You can always choose a more elegant and more powerful response to setbacks. Bad things are going to happen, but we don't always know what they mean when they do happen. To quote Kipling, we should treat triumph and disaster and treat these 2 imposters just the same. Because it's the story we tell ourselves. We can tell ourselves that we're a victim, or we can choose to take a problem and turn it to our advantage and grow through being more resilient. And this is one of the most powerful lessons we can learn. The next way to practice everyday serendipity is to be more optimistic, and is to look at what's good in our life rather than always fixating on what's wrong. So every day, keep on asking this question, what is good about this? And if you ask this throughout the day, you'll be amazed at the results. Maybe that power cut that's so irritating leads you to have an intimate and inspiring conversation with an old friend. Maybe not getting the job you really wanted leads you to meeting the love of your life at the job you do get. And maybe being ill for several weeks forces you to reevaluate, take stock, and transform your life. And you only would have got there by going through these misfortunes. Everything is a learning opportunity if you have the right mindset. And we know from countless studies in positive psychology that the more optimistic you are, not only are you more happy, but you improve your emotional and your physical well-being. And the final and most important skill is to be appreciative. And this is the most important one, because when we learn to really appreciate what we have, we contribute more to our happiness than any other skill. And don't just wait for happy accidents. Go out and actively seek them, because they're out there all the time. We just need to look up from our smartphones, look up from our laptops, and see that our lives are already magnificent. Just stop to consider the incredible accidents and coincidences that have brought you here today. Think of your parents meeting and giving birth to you, the incalculable odds of that happening, and of their parents doing the same and their parents before them. Go back thousands of generations and know with all your heart and mind that whatever happens to you in life, your life is already serendipitous beyond measure. And the key is to restore the balance from spending a lot of time focusing on what you don't have and really focusing on being grateful. Because psychologists now know that gratitude is the absolute heart and key to happiness. So when you wake up in the morning, really focus on the fact that your life is already serendipitous. What is more miraculous than the priceless gift of life and having another day on planet Earth? Every day, try and remember the great words of Einstein. There are only two ways to live your life. One is though nothing is a miracle, and the other is though everything is a miracle. Spend each day counting every blessing, savoring every moment, every breath, because your life truly is miraculous. Thank you.